Hey, good evening, everybody. We are here today. I've been really looking forward to this hangout. We are here with Mark from Our Melted Reality and Christian. Hello, boys.
Hey, how's it going, Karen?
Good day, everyone. Good evening, wherever you are.
I've got one of your videos playing now, Mark. It's the Graveyard of Lies, that one.
Okay.
We were just Christian asked you a question, and you were replying. So, Christian, what was the question you just asked Mark?
Well, it was about how these places had been hit. I mean, they're not all quite the same. They don't look the same. They look like they've been hit with different types of weapons.
Yeah. In my perspective, I see this realm as a circuit board. Today, if you get like a motherboard, trying to compare it, kind of the same thing, because we see the same things. These old world buildings are built like, and they're built like our power plants or anything that harnesses energy. So, at like a circuit board, all these buildings were built on this plane, whatever this was, whatever the ground level really is, goes way well below what we see. And all these buildings with towers and the domes, and they're all harnessing energy. And so this whole place was filled with these enormous, beautiful buildings with concrete facades on them and everything else, gold domes, copper, had iron, which I've witnessed around in where I live in Alabama, iron going through these melted brick buildings. So, and at some point, and I do think it was sabotaged, it looks like to me, but it was just a big overload of electrical heat from the bottom, like on a motherboard, and it was a big surge, and some of the buildings, this whole place completely melted down in my eyes. And then you have, just like on a circuit board, you have pockets that don't look affected. You might have a chip over here that's just completely melted in black goo or whatever, and then you'll have others that don't look heat damaged, but they all are heat damaged. And it just looks like it was a one-time event from the bottom up. And you can see that with, say, the scorching on top of certain buildings, and then there'll be a shell of the brickwork on, say, a so-called ancient building or whatever, or a monastery or whatever, and on the insides of that shell brick or block or whatever, it's turned to mush, and it's like a component that gets fried, and that's where most of your electrical heat energy is going. Just like zapping something, and then it shorts out, it stops. As far as if that was controlled, in my mind, I don't know. Controlled as far as when it was stopped and how these things cool down so quickly. Water ran through everything, and still does today. Your springs, your dams, even some of the dams, those old world. They can say that they built some stuff, but water ran through all this. So just imagine if your house got wiped out, and then now you got all this water coming out and it doesn't stop. That, to me, that was the flood. It happened all at the same time, and that could have had to do with why certain things cooled down maybe pretty quickly. Or you can just see the melt coming over these buildings, called rock curtaining or whatever, and it just stopped. So that's my, I guess, in short, interpretation of what happened here. Just a total one-time meltdown and flooding, basically at the same time.
Well, I mean, it's said that we live in a torus magnetic field, and would it be possible that at one point there was like a reversal of the magnetic fields, and it caused a backfire, like a backlash, which caused the actual surge of everything coming from the ground upwards, like a total reversal, which, I mean, in some places the buildings have been burnt only in certain sections. When you see the tops being burnt or the bases being burnt, that's probably what in my mind would be the cause of a backfire.
Right. Yeah. You could. I mean, there's a lot of different scenarios, really, like you're saying. That the actual why and who and what or how it happened, I have no clue. But it just looks like you're saying, with certain parts of a building being fried looking, and then certain being not. It just, that electrical, to me, that electrical heat energy just stopped. Kind of like a lightning bolt, I guess, if you would say, and how it splits up and it just stops. My house has been hit by lightning before, and it'll go through the ground, and then it'll go through a wall a little bit and then just stop. And but it actually, damages more. It damages through the house and the wiring, whatever. But yeah, it's I'm trying to learn every day when I'm doing the boots on the ground and stuff, and looking at the brick and how that's affected. And it's a weird event, and I can't comprehend it myself, and especially not knowing what really happened and where it came from. It's just, I just look at it as like, batteries everywhere on a circuit board or whatever, and then some of them totally melted and some of them just half and half. And it's just, these buildings are just so enormous in size. Even some that exist today, that are, actually, you can tell, that are brick and stuff, that they go well below the ground level. And that's to me, that's, you call caves and mines, and that's just it's just building melting on rooms and whatever else, and that's just what's left over.
It is quite weird how some of it is underground, like the windows haven't gone rotten or anything when they've taken the earth away again. Nothing's rotted.
Right.
I find that really weird.
Yeah, there's a lot of wood too, and there's iron and stuff that does look, kind of older or rusted, but, some of them, they say, are 500 years old or 800 years old, and it's really weird and amazing too that the wood and the iron, they don't look that old. And personally, to me, this didn't happen more than I would push more till 400 years ago. I say that just because of the places I've been, and the vegetation, and you look at these black and white 1800 pictures, and you see you see nothing as far as, trees or anything. And then today, the place looks the same, and then you have whatever vegetation around it. And okay, so how old is that vegetation? So I just don't think it was that long ago.
No, but you know what? On top of that plateau by Everest, the Gobi Desert, and there's another one, they used to be seas, and you can see where all the water leaked out. I wonder if that played a big effect on things. And Everest, I think, is taller than they're showing. What happens if that touched the firmament or something?
Yeah, and actually,
that's on the Ring of Fire. Everest.
Yeah. I can't remember the name of the island. It's in Hawaii, and it's actually the tallest, or not tallest, is the biggest mountain, they say, from what they call seafloor to the top. It's 30,000 feet. I think it sticks out of the water like 15 or 14,000 feet. But yeah, I'm with you on all these mountains, I think, were buildings, and they were taller because they've come down and in this apocalyptic event. So everything was taller to me. But going back to that one in Hawaii, that's just been, to me, that's just been flooded. That was a building, and to the seafloor, and whatever's below that seafloor, it's still rock, sand. It's just re-solidified when it was hot, the brick. And so to me, these buildings were just enormous, and had water running through all of it.
Do you think that, obviously, Christian quite likes the idea that we were those giants here? What's your take on that? Do you think they were because of giants were here, or do you think they just built them bigger?
Yeah, and I go back to what I see, and then statues and paintings and everything else. There were bigger beings to me, obviously, back then, whenever. bigger beings, different beings, stuff, with half, what we call, say, an animal and half human or whatever. And, the more I look around, all around the world or whatever, the more that's you're just not going to make that stuff up. As far as statues and all this kind of stuff, and the doorways and you still have 40-foot doorways in some cases. Why in the world would you build that? As far as like Titans, like miles high, I don't know about that. What I see is bigger beings everywhere around. But yes, I'm 100% in beings.
Oh, one second, say Christian.
Well, I was just going to step in there and say that I've done my own referrals, right? And I always stick to evidence. And in my book, evidence needs no defense. And when I did quite a few paintings of buildings that still stand today, now artists are profound in the details in what they're painting. I mean, I've got a replica constable, and they always are prolific in the detail. And when you do a comparison of the time they were painting, these buildings were painted, and you see the people in the paintings, and then you go to the modern pictures of these places, and you see that the actual people are smaller, and there's lots of paintings to do referrals from, and you think, oh my giddy aunt, you begin to realise that these people were bigger. It's not just in one painting, it's in numerous paintings, and when you discover that for yourself, you think, well, what happened to us? Did we shrink overnight? Because we're told that these buildings were built in the 1800s, some in the 1700s, some in the 1800s. So that's only like 300 years ago. And everything seems to revolve round about the time that Isaac Newton discovered this, these discovered that. Copernicus said that the world was round. And, all these evaluations were done, like Mark says, around about 500 years ago. But you research the paintings and then do a comparison with a picture of the modern day world. You think, well, what is going on?
Yeah, you're exactly right. And I didn't even realize myself, until I started doing this a few years ago, at all these paintings and all the bigger beings, all bigger people, and how did we shrink so fast? And even in the early 1900s with black and white pictures of people of 8-9 foot tall, whatever, and they say they had deficiencies. Well, how did they get those deficiencies? Just like the stuff they try to give us today, jabberoos or whatever. What are we? Did they mess with us, whoever they is, as far as bringing us down smaller and separating us, dividing, conquering? Because that's, to me, that's what it's all about, and that's as far as control, what we're being controlled today. But yeah, how did they shrink everything down like that? And I mean, we don't know, because they stole the knowledge. It's amazing. Nobody has any recollection of any of this. And there's obviously something big that happened here, and we don't know. Or I don't. So, but trying to figure it out, really, it's just, to me, it's just proving, say, all these Coke ovens and furnaces, which are all over the place, and they've got them in your side over there too, and you read the narratives, and they're just totally ridiculous, and even the manpower, or building these huge brick stone structures, it's just not plausible. I mean, it makes no sense. We can't even do it today. So it's like stuff was left here after whenever that was, and then they just repurposed everything. Do you
think it was more advanced? Because in a sense, you can say by the big buildings that they were more advanced, but when you look at photographs, the photographs look old, and they're wearing old clothes.
Yeah, that's another thing, when I've seen pictures of stuff I've been to, and then, it's supposed to be new construction. It looks really old. But it's because it got damaged, but, and they'll be wearing old clothes, and it was, I think, yes, it was highly advanced, but simple. today is so complicated, and they make things so complicated, I think, on purpose. Just what I'm holding in my hand here, the phone. But they just overcomplicate things when I just go back to, say, the early 1900s. They had steam engines, and it's just
yeah. See, do you see that's not overly modern, is it? I'm not saying, it's not particularly modern, is it? It's not like a jet plane or something. They're in old equipment, but they still seem more advanced than they're telling us.
Right, because it's a lot of them. It looked like it was based on a free energy, and it's just a simple part here and there, and then it's working. And now they tell us, well, we're so advanced and stuff. No, we're not advanced at all. We're going the other direction.
Yeah, because everything's abandoned.
Yeah.
But that video you were talking about with the ovens, that's where Christian understands who you are, because we obviously mirrored that video. Right.
Yeah, and that was an amazing place. That was the first one I've been to like that had multiple, and it was hundreds. And in the narrative it says they built 300 of those things, and they only used half of them, and this place only stayed in business or whatever.
I said to you that place is older than they said it is. I think that place was really old, that one.
Oh, yeah. And that's another thing, it's in the middle of nowhere, 15 miles, any direction. There's not even a house. It's in the middle of the woods. Yeah, it was. I was more amazed at that. I was like, there's nothing.
Mark, that was one of my emphases was, when there's that many of them, and it's not just one place. These things are, very many places across America. But one thing that really bugged me is, where were the houses for the workers? Where was the canteens? Where was the first aid place? Where was the structures to supply the food, the workings of them? When you're talking 300, in one place alone, where are the buildings?
Exactly. The closest building to that specific place, there is a little town, and there might be out of, 20, and they're all brick, most of them, and there's a couple, they look old world, but it's dead. There's 2 shops open, that's it. There's 1 gas station, and there's nothing around. Like you're saying, the homes and stuff, there's a few houses around that little town, but they're old. And past that, there's nothing. And you're supposed to have this, this huge train with the coke ovens and going through. And
I don't think that one had cut trains on it. I think it's even older, and I think it was a bit different. Because, you were showing methylitic stones and stuff.
Yeah, which is even more, confusing, really, if you're just going somewhere, because it's only at the start of them, at the start of all the brickwork, those huge stones. There's 1, 2, 3 on the entrance, and then you walk all the way to the back through the woods to the other side, and there's more big stone, megalithic, boulders or whatever, and they're just at the ends of it. And first of all, why would you even do that if you could do that? Why are you building the stone like that, and then all the rest brick? In this time period too. It makes no sense as far as that. And to me, it's just electrical heat damage, and it certain pockets of this component or building, it struck those certain areas, harder. And
do you think?
like,
like at the moment, I keep finding abandoned places, but in the past, maybe they were abandoned, but they weren't in that bad a nick, and they just took them over. That's what we've suggested before, is they just moved into it. It was already here, and this generation of us, and we took over what was left.
Right, and there's probably a lot of those spots like that they were taken over and maybe even used, but not built. We didn't. This, old world built that stuff. We did not build that stuff. They were just taken over or repurposed, in my eyes.
Can I ask you then, how many years that you've been into this? What made you get into looking up melted or Tartary sort of buildings and all that? How did you get into it?
It started, I would say, about 6 or 7 years ago. I got into the 9/11 thing, and then progressed into flat Earth, and then it went into, after that, let's see, I started seeing some mud flood stuff, which, to me, now that's just brick flood. It's after that happened, that water you mix with the brick ash that makes mud. But anyway, so started with that stuff, and then the Titans came in and all this, and so I live around a bunch of this stuff, obviously, and so I would go out and get rocks, boulders. I would look around. I'm like, okay, well, this isn't making sense. This doesn't look like a body part, or this doesn't look like a tree, a petrified tree or whatever. The guy presenting, I'm looking, watching these videos years ago, it looks like it on his video in his area, but not in my area. So I'm watching this tree guy. I can't remember his name. I say tree guy. He's saying everything is huge, gigantic trees, and they're petrified or whatever. So he puts this other guy on for just a split second. He's making fun of him. His name, I didn't know at the time. His name was Jerry DeCamp. So he just said, these are melted buildings, And so at that point, I just shut everything off because I couldn't, I thought everybody didn't know what they were talking about. I got to do this on my own. So I found this channel. What's it called? Amazing Places on Our Planet. I call it Amazing Places on Our Plane. But it's epic video, especially back then. This was 3 years, actually, next month it'll be. He had like 300 videos, 4K, and no narration. It just showed all over the place, mountains, old towns, just what we call, I guess, nature, whatever. So by the 5th episode, I don't know if it was because I heard Jerry say that in my head, but once I saw it, it just clicked. They're all buildings, and every episode I watched all of them. It took me about 2 months through the winter, and so after that, actually, I came back to, because I'd already shut off TV completely, news and all that. I was done with all that. So came back and then sought after who that guy was, and then it led me to Spartan Red, and actually a guy, the Tartarian Meltdown, his name is Joachim, and those were my two guys I watched a lot. And then all of a sudden I found that back in February, I found that Facebook group,
Melted Mountains, isn't it, or something?
Melted, yeah, or I always want to say mountains are melted red brick buildings, but it's just mountains are brick buildings.
Yeah.
Melted brick. Anyway, there was 12 people in it. The guy started it, who, great guy. I was putting all kind of great stuff on there already, and so I got in there and I'm like, oh man, there's an avenue where I can post stuff or pictures, and I never wanted a YouTube channel. I never wanted to, go public or anything as far as this. And so I got in that group, and then the old, the old China thing, I suppose it happened. And then, after that, I knew with the whole government thing, I was just like, you know what, screw this. This is real.
Sorry about that. Carry on.
So started doing that as soon as this stuff went down across the realm as far as what's going on now. But got irritated with that, and I said, well, I'm starting a channel. And then right about that time, the group started blowing up. Spartan Red got in it for a little while, and the numbers started going up. And then he made his own group called Red Brick University. Melted Brick University, sorry. I always get these two groups' names mixed up. But that's his personal group. And it's blown up a little bit as far as when it was, say, 2 years ago when I was watching those guys. It's a lot of people are starting to question stuff, at least as far as the narratives and what is this, and because it makes everything. If what we're living on is a lie, then it makes everything else a lie, because they're putting stories on top of lies on top of lies. And so, I mean, it's just like adding, you got a gallon of water and you put a little, a dab of poison in it. Well, it's going to poison the whole jug of water. And that's just like a lie to me. So, as far as how I got started, that's probably a long-winded answer to that.
That was a perfect answer. Thank you very much, Mark. It was perfectly answered. Thank you.
Yeah.
Christian, do you want to say something?
Well, yes, I mean, one of the most prolific things about it was the red brick. It seems to be worldwide, and even in places like the Gobi Desert and other deserts, red brick is found. And I first came across it 15 years ago, but I never gave it much thought back then because it wasn't why I was looking at this researcher. I was looking at him for a different reason. But he points out that there are like red brick towns and cities in Africa, and as we found out recently, there's even castles. But it's the red brick. It's like universal. It's everywhere. It's like the world was one place at one time, and it was all connected, and everybody built in red brick. But when you discover that some of these buildings actually burnt from the top downwards, and some of the other ones are like from ground level going upwards, so that to me it suggests that there is like hot fusion and cold fusion. Is the hot fusion from the top and the cold fusion from the bottom, which heats up from the bottom? It's so many questions and very little answers. I mean, we can establish that there might have been what they call the polar effect, the magnetic polar effect, where the magnetics are reversed and it causes the backlash. But in some areas, it looks like, because some of these buildings are different ages, and when you establish that they're different ages, you think, well, was there weaponry involved as well? And from what we can establish in more recent times, that we know certain places have been hit with like weapons, and that's from above. And many people have pictured lasers coming from the sky. So once you establish all that.
Yeah. I mean, you're right on that too, as far as what's going on today, especially. To me, as far as the worldwide one event, everything, like say here and where y'all live, I mean, they're exactly the same. And like you're saying with the brick, I mean, I've dug down, for a plant or something, putting a plant in, and then there'll be a brick, and like, where'd this brick come from? They're everywhere, but as far as, to me too, there was a deception, it looked like, whenever this happened, but way before it actually happened. So who knows, as far as the weapons or whatever, it could be anything from vibrations to, harnessing energy in something. And,
well, my wonder is this all happening around the Ring of Fire? Maybe it was volcanoes going even worse with earthquakes. And the other day, me and Christian were looking at, mining causes earthquakes, and we've already been mined to death in the 17 and 1800s. Maybe they caused some earthquakes.
Well, to me, the mining they're just mining like today, or even 150 years ago, whatever, how they mine today. They're just mining these leftover buildings, which we get clay. Clay is the most abundant element, I think, on Earth. All kind of clay, and they just you take that and you make brick. Iron ore and all this. That's just, these were parts of the buildings that melted, and we're just recycling them today. Who knows how they actually made the brick or made the iron or anything, gold, whatever.
Those ovens that you found, do you think those could have been making bricks?
What's that?
Those ovens that you found. Do you think they could have been making?
I have no idea. Yeah, I mean, that's what I really want to know. Where's the damn brick maker? Because I mean, these buildings, they have just layers and layers of brick. It'd be 20 brick deep for a wall, and it's like, why is it so thick? I mean, you would never do that today, and they were saying they were doing that, 250 years ago or 200 years ago, whatever, building these just brick after brick. I would love to know, and it could even be like today, gene print out, have concrete, and they just spit it out and then just make these not huge buildings, but they'll build walls or whatever with it, and it's really quick. Who knows what they had back then to make this stuff. It's so precise, and these domes on the inside, and you have these brick domes, and it's just incredible architecture. And just perfect, and it's all designed. It looks like to me, for what this place is set up, it's like a machine. With stars, everything, and everything's aligned, and it was for a reason to harness the energy, and I think beings lived a long time before all this, and we live on a damaged realm. Looks like to me, and I try not to get sad about it sometimes, but it's we're looking at destruction, and we're taught as its beauty. And it's not.
Yeah, I'd like the truth. We're the baddies. We won. We got them out, and you're here now, and that's the way it is. At least we know the truth.
Yeah, just tell me the truth. It would go a lot better. But see, they don't want you to know the truth because they're in control.
I'm a bit shocked at how many mines that there was. Like, we were completely mined in the 17 and 1800s, and it finished about, say, the 1920s, 1930s, all for the end of Tartaria. So it's all a bit weird that we were completely mined. I'm just wondering whether they caused earthquakes and problems.
Yeah, that's another thing. You said that on the mines, even around here, like you said, it was the 1800s or early 1900s, and they were done. So what, but they're still mining. But just on tops, they're just mining the top of everything, or going from the top down. They're not chiseling out, which is total BS to me, like, tunnels and stuff. And then, I think that, that was left, and people went in there to grab stuff, just like they're just finding things. They weren't mining, I don't think, anything. There might have been some spots where they were pulling stuff out that was, prevalent, whatever, but, they mine tops of everything now. But yeah, it makes no sense of what they're telling us as far as all that. No sense.
I'd recently watched a documentary on what you were saying about mining the tops, and they had to climb, I don't know, 17. I don't know, nearly 2,000 feet up into the air to get to this open mine, right? And they're using these 200-ton trucks, these really big trucks, and you think they're going all the way up there. So, and it's a gold mine, and what boggles my mind is that at the end of the documentary, he said this mine has given up in its recent capacity 600 billion tons of gold mineral, and you go, that is a lot of gold. Now, my thoughts are, who needs that amount of gold? You're talking a lot of gold, but it's the mine. They've had to climb all the way to the top, and it's a gigantic open mine, and all they're doing is from the top downwards and creating a hole.
Yeah, that's all they're doing. And crystals and all that, to me, it's just heat and pressure from these buildings. I don't know how exactly it's created, but it's just the building, whatever it was made of, and you get this intense heat or electrical heat, and then it just chemically changes the buildings of brick into these things. You can't wrap your head around it because it's so enormous. This event, and that the whole geology thing and all that, which I've never believed in any of that. It's just stupid, millions of years and all this, and compressed, sedimentary lines and all this. It's just and back to what you're saying, Karen, the earthquakes. They could, whatever, just like they alter the weather or whatever, they could cause that, but it's just unsettled. To me, it's just unsettled the building that's just moving. It's just like when you get a sinkhole or something that's just it's just part of the building that just eventually collapses with water, whatever. It's you could drive yourself crazy kind of thinking about that kind of stuff.
But when we're looking at the moment, this is the old world built this, we did not. So it's Lithia Springs, Georgia. You can see the
Yes.
land has come up over the windows at the bottom. So some mud come in. Something had to happen.
Right. To me, okay, so that certain video. So it was a supposed mill. It was like 1850 something.
Looks more
whatever.
like a castle.
Yeah, but you have the blocks and all the different kind of supposed rocks on the bottom of it. Then you're building with brick, and then
I saw
sometimes
that.
you'll
They
have
built on the top
the
of something
rock.
else, haven't they?
Yeah, and then so that's towards the bottom, towards the river right there, and then there's a huge hill up on above it. And to me, that's just the building, and it melted, solidified. It eventually solidified, it liquefied some of it, and covered a lot of these buildings. From the bottom from the top, but there's pockets that survived that didn't get just melted, and all the melt is going over these buildings, and which they call mud flood or whatever. But to me, that's just the brick melt going down, and then once it hardened back into sand or dirt or whatever, then you put water with it, and then that's what we call mud. That's just my thoughts on that. Of course we have mud now, but as far as a event of a mud flood, of course, I go back. If this event happened, then there was a flood. It's going to make mud after this event from these melted buildings. But that particular spot in Georgia, it looks like it was covered from the top a little bit, on down. It was melting down, and then they just make up a story about when the Civil War they came and destroyed it, and it only ran for like a year supposedly, this place. And it doesn't even look like it should be there. Looks like a castle a little bit on that one side, and it's just I don't even think it was used as anything. It was just they just put a narrative with it, and then there you go. And in the Civil, like all the wars are used even today. They're just used to take over stuff, or just destroy our history. Take over land, or get rid of this guy in charge, or wherever. They're all BS. My dad was in Vietnam, not at his choice, and he's told me story after story about where a little battle or whatever he was in, or a firefight, and then the newspaper would come out there in Vietnam the next day, and it would say there was only 3 Vietnamese dead, and he saw them. The paper would say 33, and there was only There's one, he said it said 233 Vietnamese dead. He only saw, they added a 0. They added another decimal point, and then on his side, it only said 3 died, Americans, but he said 3 died, but there was 8 lifted in the helicopter in his unit. He doesn't know if they lived or died. They were rotated in and out of there, but it was just total lies. No matter what was going on, whether you're writing about it or seeing it. So you can't believe anything.
No. That's what we found ourselves. You cannot believe any of it.
So
I think this video's finishing. We're going to change the video. 1 second. There's another video to play now, because obviously you go out doing quite a few videos. Yeah, I was a bit shocked when I looked at your furnace one at the time. Obviously I've done quite a bit of research and made videos about it myself. You helped me make videos.
Well, good. That's what I want to do. I got a lot of responses on that one too, which I was, like I said, I was shocked when I got there. I was like, wow, I never knew this was here, and it's a middle of nowhere, and it's crazy, crazy brick everywhere, and it's melted, a lot of it. So. And the thing about the furnaces too, they say, yeah, this is a furnace, but they're all clean. There's none with like soot or whatever. They're array of colors of the brick.
Yeah, we're on that video actually. We're on that video, but it doesn't matter. We can see it again as we're talking about it.
Yeah.
But would there be soot there? If they were burning really hot, would there be soot in there? I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know, but I haven't seen Yeah, I've been to 1, 2, 3, 4. I've been to 5 different furnaces, supposed all different, styles, I guess. And yeah, none of them have any resemblance of like actually cooking something in. So
Are
they
you
say they probably
quite
just cooked water in
shocked?
it.
Are you quite shocked that Alabama has so much in it?
Yes, very. Because growing up, I grew up in South Alabama. I've been here for about 20 years, but like these furnaces, I had no idea they were even here. And it's a mile radius of say 100 miles around me, and there's 5, and there's more I hadn't been to. But they're everywhere, and they're always in the middle of nowhere.
That's what I'm saying. These could have been building the bricks because there's so many of them, and one of them I saw had 400 furnaces.
Yeah, they could have been. I don't think they were used at all like they say they were used. Like
I agree.
Yeah. And like I said, they might have used them after the catastrophe for something, some of them, but they were not used for what they said they were used for.
In my experience, that these type of furnaces, I worked in a place from the 1780s. It's now gone, it got demolished, but it had what you call similar furnaces in it, and they were made out of brick, more or less like these ones were, but they weren't used for coke burning, they were used for metallurgy. And when you come to, I'm just saying it from my point of view, but they were very similar in their makeup and their build and their structure, and they were used for melting metal. So that, from my point of view, that's the way I got to see it.
Right.
When you put together that the time frames that they may have been built in, if there was a civil war, they might have been used for creating shellcation, cannonball, whatever, being said there's so many of them. But the one thing that astounds me is, where are the buildings that, you'd have to have some sort of structure. I know they probably had tents in them days, but you'd still have to have a structure to keep all the stuff, out of the harm's way of the weathering.
Yeah, you say tents, and it's funny because I was just thinking of that. They build these huge brick, places or furnaces, whatever, buildings, and then you don't have anywhere to go stay. Or you're going to build a tent. You're gonna live in a tent.
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense.
No. So, yeah, just total BS to me. No, I'm still waiting for somebody to prove they actually use these places for what they say. The older ones at least. So I haven't seen anything yet. And I encourage, like, I try to prove myself wrong. That's how I got to this point as far as the melted buildings. I just kept trying to prove myself. Well, okay, is it petrified tree? And well, no, this it doesn't look like this. It's not, and I just go on, and then there'd be other people saying, well, look at this, look at that, and I always try to prove myself wrong, or not wrong, but towards something else.
You have to keep an open mind.
Yeah, you have to. You can't just stop with, okay, this is it. If I'd have done that, I'd have been thinking, everything was Titans and stuff, petrified, which I never really got into that. But, you got to always keep an open mind and different people's perspectives. So even if I'm half wrong and then you're half wrong, you can put together things better when you're finding concrete evidence like, okay, this part is exactly like what we're saying or something, and then you put somebody else's idea with it. Just not any idea from schools, indoctrination, and because I've been through it all. I went to college too for a while, so but I learned more street stuff, which is way better than these stupid history and geology and all that book.
Yeah, it's all a load of rubbish that anyway, and it's all a lie, so well done.
Yeah.
Are your family behind you, or are you doing this on your own?
No, well, that's funny. I have been married for 18 years now. Have 3 kids. I have a 10-year-old daughter, and my boys are 20. They are I'm pretty sure they're into thinking of the melted buildings at least and how everything's a lie. My wife is there. I don't think she is cares about it as much as I do. If I guess you want to say that. At first there was that, just like anything else, especially when you're doing it publicly online or something, and you get these people, oh, you're so stupid, whatever, and you just have to have thick skin. But they're on the same page, at least the same page, I guess, as me. But I'm a little bit more, I do this all the time on my spare time, and they don't really do any of it. They get enough of it from me. So they probably.
What do your friends make of you doing all this, or are they interested or not interested? We only hang out probably with 2-3 sets of friends. And it's funny, one of the friends, he went to college too. His favorite subject was geology, and and he always asked me stuff. He's like, "Hey, what do you is that millions of years old?" And I'll tell him, I'm like, "Look, I've even spent a little time with him. Like, look, this is melted building. This da 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 da," and he would be like, "Oh, well, you put up a good argument or whatever," and then he'll get into something else. He didn't really want to hear it. I have another friend like that. So I don't, like, when I do hang out with them, I don't even really talk about it. I tell them the way I feel. If they ask me something about, say, the Earth, flat Earth, or whatever, I'm like, yeah, it's this. But they don't ever really go from there. It's just like anybody else that really doesn't want to know that. They see it if you're telling them certain things, but then they just focus away from it because they know it's going to change their whole reality, and so they don't want to leave that reality, and that's fine. I can hang out with whoever. Now it does, I can't just go hang out with somebody that's just total and talking about NASA and space and geology all the time. I can't do that. But I don't get out much. I'm out all the time as far as doing this and then my work. But I don't really hang out with anybody much. Just a couple of friends, but but they don't give me hell about it or anything. As far as do you ever get
that's stupid.
when you find this stuff or you put a few things together, does it turn your stomach because you think, oh, what is all this?
Yeah, it does. I get it. When I'm at certain places, I'll get there and I'll be excited and heart's racing, and because it's just more evidence. But then it'll mess with my head sometimes. Just you try not to let it depress you. I just hope that when I do go, I don't come back here, because this is not a very good place to be. But you try to make it as good as you can. I love my family and everything, and people, and that's really why I'm doing this too, just to open people's eyes. At least you don't have to say believe what I'm saying, but you can at least go and check it out, look, and then just opens your mind, frees your mind into other things, and not believing everything they've seen on that damn TV.
I like Mark. I like you. I like what you're saying.
Yeah. But yeah, it's just like at the beginning when I was doing this stuff, it opens your mind, and then it pulls you away from that, the school, the TV telling you one thing, this is it, this is the science, this is, proven history, it pulls you away from that, and it's a con job, and it's just to suck your energy and your time and your money into their corrupt system. That's basically what it is, and they don't want you to live too long, because you'll figure shit out.
I'm just going to say, with the change of all the calendars of the past, like you've got your Hegelian calendar, you've got your Hellenian calendar, you've got your Julian calendar, you've got your Gregorian calendar, and you've got a calendar that some of the original countries still stick by. But when you put it all together, everything they do is to create confusion which gives you more questions of why. And you think of the ages. Did they do it because of the ages? And my reasoning is no. They do it to create more confusion. And that's exactly what it's achieved, because there's no continuity. And when you look at everything else that goes along with it, you begin to discover that everywhere you dig, you end up digging somewhere else. And it does send you into that vibrational state where you get into a negative point, but you have to come back to reasoning and think to yourself, well, they've been doing this for a very long time, and lift yourself above it, because what you just said, that you don't want to come back yet, this is exactly how they're making everybody feel today. But it's because of people like us researching the history, we're more or less giving them a little lift back up, saying, well, we know they're doing it deliberately. We know they're doing it to keep you in that state. So, once you start to figure this out, it should lift you up a little bit, because it does make me feel in the same sentiments that you're saying, that you don't want to come back here. But, everything you do takes you away from the point of creation and a creator. They've changed this place into what it is today for a very long time now. It may be 500 years, it may be longer, but we have no real evidence as to say what time frames we're looking at.
Yeah, you're exactly right on the confusion too. It's all about confusion. I mean, you only have a little bit of your time to if you have family work, whatever, to dedicate to that, and then they're just splitting it up into all these other variables, and then you take not your time to look this and like that up. And then they're changing words all the time, and I can see it faster and faster every day. Look back 10 years ago, and they've already changed, something that I, supposedly learned or whatever, made it more difficult to understand. And that's their go-to to me. Obviously, is just total confusion, where you just get so tired of trying to find the truth. You're just like, screw it, I'm just going to go with whatever they're telling me, and it wears you down. But I said, it makes me sad sometimes. This actually, I'm happier than I've ever been as far as finding out, for myself. That all this stuff's a lie.
You mean spiritually?
Yeah, spiritually, it's helped me a lot as far as that's concerned, because even if you're believing everything and you do any of this stuff we're doing, you're just on a one-track mind. You're just doing what you're supposed to do what your leaders tell you. This is safe, whatever. It's not supposed to be like that. Nobody should be telling you what to do at all, as long as you're not hurting or stealing from anybody. And it just leave me alone is my favorite one.
It seems to me they're just trying to make us into a nothing when we have rights of our own bodies and all that kind of stuff, and they're trying to take all those rights away and make everybody into one.
Yep. Make everybody like a robot and do what they want to say.
The past isn't any less important than the present and the future, but without the past, we don't know who we are, where we're living, and the whole thing. I want to know those things.
Precisely.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah, I mean, wouldn't that be so much better if we actually knew where we were at,
All you do is, there's a 1,000-piece jigsaw puzzle, and then you've probably found another 4 or 5 pieces to the puzzle, but we still haven't got a puzzle to fill.
Yeah, that's a great analogy. I think about that all the time with the puzzle pieces. I'm like, we got a lot of puzzle pieces left.
I just want to get to the end. I want the whole puzzle finished.
Yes. Yeah. I don't think we're going to live long enough to get half the puzzle done, but I'm going to try.
It's almost, I said to Christian, it's almost as if there were the League of Gentlemen type, and then something horrible's happened, and then we've got the poor Victorians.
Yeah. And I think, too...
So the 1700s were far more important than the 1800s.
Right. To me, like whenever it happened, or these catastrophe or multiple whatever, they've gotten rid of the parents. Once you do that, and then say repopulate or whatever, and you're just teaching whatever you want to be taught, and you can forget history really quickly. if the people that were teaching you and telling you what happened are calm, and it seems like that's what happened, especially with the orphan trains.
Also, do you
that were
believe
going
in
on.
this whole thing with like the mud flood or whatever you want to call it? What about petrification? We're living in a place that petrifies.
Are you saying, like, do I think anything was petrified?
Yeah, do you think, you're saying some of it was burnt and that. Do you think it was petrified?
I
Obviously
don't know.
not these, but I'm just saying, do you think some of it was, or?
Yeah, I mean, some of it could have been, certain things petrified. You take, say, even water, electricity. I've seen stuff where stuff gets hit by lightning, say a tree or something, and it makes it really rock hard, like the electrical stuff. But as far like what they say, as far as that millions of years or whatever, and this petrified this, I don't believe in that. That's not accurate to me at all. But that whatever happened, it was really crazy. And I can't, I'm not smart enough, at least right now, to analyze, saying, okay, well, that happened during this event.
If you go to look at Google Maps and you look at it, say, over mountain areas, you can see that we had these electrical arkings, and where the positives went in and where they exited could be a mile or 40 miles. And then where it's positive, trees and things grow, so it's arable. And where they exited, we've got the ores. So we were definitely hit by quite a lot of electrical arcing at one point. And if you were caught in it, it probably would have evaporated you because of the heat. So that could have done this to the buildings. But then it may not have been a natural thing. It may have been something they did because it just seems that everybody likes to think they're God. All these people, they think they're God, lying to us like this, creating a fake world.
Yeah, definitely.
And if you look at your history, there always seems to be thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of people before that we don't have today.
Right, exactly. Like, they'll have, like you said, thousands of people, and then they'll have, say, everybody got sick or something, and then, or this happened, or the Black Plague, or, well, how come, it looks to me like there was, could have been trillions of people and beings, way back whenever, and now they say we're totally.
Oh, one second, don't say anything. The video's finished. Hang on a second. I was about to say, sorry.
No. What was I saying?
About petrification.
Yeah. The heat. I was saying it looks like there was. Before this happened, even trillions of beings and people, and then now, they tell us, that we're overpopulated, and when you can drive through it here in America, I mean, there's places you can drive for just hundreds of miles. There's just nothing, and they're just telling you the opposite all the time, and when there was just, like I said, trillions of whatever beings and people back then. I mean, it had to be. I mean, there's just so many buildings.
Can I just say one thing? This bit you're looking at right now looks like it's got lots of lines in. Looks like they were buildings. I was just showing somewhere like this in Russia. He was walking down the beach, and it looks just like this. And people are going, no, it's a tree, but it looks like brick. Looks just like this bit you're showing now.
Yeah, it's all brick. That particular place has nothing on it. All the other ones are government owned, whatever, have plaques on them, whatever. But this one, I can't find anything. It's off the side of the road, and it's like 300 yards or so long at least. I mean,
I know, and if you were just walking, you might not realise. You might think, oh, there's two little hills there, and not realise all those things are in it.
Yeah,
it looks like a hill fort as well. The bit you're looking at now looks like a fort.
Yeah. At one end, it looks completely melted, like even a Mayan, temple.
It's been cooked.
Temple, but
the brick was cooked.
Yeah, it's all. There's tons of brick around there. They're all melted into rocks and half brick, half rock. black, all kind of colors, and you can see the melting, which I call rock curtaining, going down. You'll probably see a point where there's these huge blocks, and then to the left of it, it's just it looks like concrete, and it's coming down over it. But it's all brick. There's brick everywhere, and the brick has turned into that from the heat.
So the bricks there look a bit more stone-like, don't they, than brick?
Yeah, and some of them have stamps on them. One says, there's a few I found, I have here at home too, Crown, which I looked it up, and it says, 70 something when that company started making those bricks, and they put Crown on the stamp on it. But it's just, that's total hogwash to me. But
I think I actually thought that Elizabeth I was really important. I mean, look what she looks like and everything. And then the 1700s, we had electricity, and it was totally different to what they're saying. And they've got us in horses and carts, and Dick Turpin and all that. When actually we were much more advanced, sailing the world, the whole thing. It was so different.
Yeah. Yeah, and then they tell you, you don't want to live like that, like they did back then. No, you actually do.
Yes, I want to go back and see how they were living. Yeah, please.
Yeah, please. I
just want to say something about what Matt was speaking about a few minutes ago. That he said that there was trillions of people in older times. Well, I mean, when you just look at one of the kings of old, and I'm going about 3,000 years ago, as they're saying, that one of the kings of old sent 800,000 men as a section of his army to defeat someone else. And you think, well, 800,000, and that was just a section of his army. And you think, well, what's that all about? And they're telling us that in them days there weren't very many people. It was just like villages and little towns. But from that description, if he's got an army and a part of just one section of it is 800,000 men,
yeah.
It's like you're saying. There must have been 3,000 years ago. There must have been a lot more people than what they've written in the history books.
Right. Oh, definitely. Yeah, and then they just kill them off, in the history books somehow. All those 800,000 people die. And then they're at another war, and
do you think Christian was saying before? Do you think we had cowboys and Indians now?
No, yeah. See, that's my territory. The whole the Indian actually here where I live is called Talladega Creek. Talladega, what is it? Indian War. Anyway, it's like 1813 or something. It's before the Civil War supposedly. But see, to me, it's just the people that were here, that were left over here or anywhere else, and then they create these stories and wars, and then they get rid of most of them, and then they take over, here, the land, whatever, the buildings. But yeah, I don't believe any of the, cowboys and Indians, and that was another, separation, and it's just like, the racism or whatever. It's just they plug into people's minds. It's you don't need to do that. Look what this person's doing or whatever. It's all about separation and dividing people, and because if we were all one, it would definitely not be like this. And I think we were all a one civilization back in the day, whenever that was, and in harmony. And so they have separated that. So, but no, I don't believe in the cowboy and Indian thing.
Yeah, made it really ugly.
Yeah.
And they've gone out of their way for the last so many hundred years to try and destroy this or cover it up, and it's just so annoying. I want to know much more like what you're showing and things. I want to know more.
Yes. Yeah. And it helps too, when, or at least for me, and I know it probably would for a lot of people to go out and touch it and compare it with another thing that you go out, because pictures and videos are great, but once you go there and you're like, well, I've been there, I know this was not like this or that, or it looks like this, and instead of just looking at pictures or something or a book, and because I'm sure y'all know, back in school, they showed us like Egypt, the pyramids, they showed us the Eiffel Tower or whatever. there's tons of pyramids. There's tons of Eiffel Towers all over the place in the middle of nowhere.
Star Forts.
Yeah, and they're everywhere. And then they show you 1 or 2 pictures in school, and that's it. It's just they're just covering it up. And I got a pyramid right down the street in the graveyard. I didn't even know it was there.
I saw that in your video. Yeah, I saw that little pyramid.
Yeah, and that was there. They didn't build. The excuse
This
for that
bit's a bit
was,
weird. You're in, like, you've come out of where the ovens are, and it looks like you're walking onto a farm now, and then there's this big wall to your left.
Yeah, is that the ovens you're showing?
Yeah, but
you're showing the extreme heat 4.
Yeah, this bit here looks different. Like it was a building, and it's all sort of fallen and dropped, and there's a farm building on the right.
Yeah, there's some old there's actually a golf course right behind that place, and then you got there's a waterworks place to the right of it if you're standing in front of it that looks really old brick building. But there's so many stages at that place. I mean, there's like 4 or 5 stages that it looks like to me from the heat. You get from brick to block to just melted concrete looking to that just Mayan pyramid melting looking end on the other side. So it's just so many stages at that one site.
Yeah, wouldn't we really like to know what happened?
Yeah, I'd just like to know the narrative of that place, but they don't have one.
Yeah, I've caught a couple of other videos after yours, and they said the same, like, I just found this place. One of them was looking for bottles in the creek, and he'd have never found it if he hadn't gone up the water. So,
Yeah, I've watched videos too. It's from around here, and there's like they'll go through creeks and stuff, and they're just trying to find old stuff or whatever. And the guy he'll go and he'll look down and he'll pick up this brick, in the middle of this creek with all this rock, and it'll be like a mangled. He's like, "What is this brick doing here, huh?" And then he just throws it down, And I'm like, "Yeah, but your mind just doesn't really. It doesn't know what to do. It's just like I didn't with geology, or mountains and all this stuff, years ago. You just walk by and I didn't think it was, I didn't believe anything they were saying it was, but you just don't know where to start. And that's the frustrating thing, because they tell you it's from the other end. It's always opposite, And to me, like they say, mountains came up from the earth. Well, no, they went down to the earth. Anything else? I mean, they tell you, flat Earth, ball, space testicle Earth. They're telling you the opposite of everything. So it's.
I mean, this bit you're just showing here is a little bit odd, because you've got these methylitic stones and then this brickwork built all around it.
Yeah.
I mean, what's that when you're at home?
Right. So why are you building with brick, and then you have to use these methylitic stones? That makes no sense. Just build the whole thing with brick. It's just dumb to me. Especially when you're looking at it, it makes zero sense. You would never do that.
Do you think that they built on top of stuff that was there? Oh, look, there's half of a oven place. Yeah. Let's build on top of it. Do you think they did that a bit or not?
In certain circumstances, say like a building or something like that, say that video you're showing. No, I just that was a building, and it goes deep below whatever that is. It's just melted, but so I don't. As far as adding on to stuff, the only instances I think is just like refurbishing a building or something like that.
1 second. What was it? You can remember roughly where you were talking. Sorry about that.
Oh, no problem. Actually, through with that statement probably. Just on that video you're showing now, it's just another supposed furnace. That's about 20 miles from my house. Again, it was supposedly built in the 1850s or whatever, and then the Civil War. They destroyed it, whatever, and that's what's left, which is just BS. But in that particular one, I'll show it's the rock wall behind the actual structure. It's half big, boulders, brick right in the middle, then more boulders, and then at the top, of the structure towards the top middle. All of a sudden, there's just this brick that's bending over. It looks like it's melting, and then it's the only brick on the back side of the structure. And in the front of the structure, it's got a big archway of perfect brick. It's been heat damaged, but and then everything else is these huge, blocks. And it just doesn't. Why are you putting a little bit of brick in these big blocks? It's just doesn't make any sense. And you can see it in certain places where it's changing from brick to stone or brick to block.
It's a bit weird. Looks like they've been filling in. So let's patch that up. Stick a bit of brick in.
Yeah. Let's patch that up with some brick. Well, why didn't you build it with brick? But and then another furnace. And now these are all built in the same time period, like 1850s to or right before the Civil War. And
I think they probably meant 17 or 16. They're just liars.
Yeah. And then and then there'll be another furnace that's just all brick, and then one that's just all block, and then so they're all mixed up, and they're all supposed to be built in the same year. And it makes no sense.
It probably only took them a week to construct, because it only takes them a week or two to build them.
Yeah.
In the history books.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's just like bing, bada, boom. It's
it.
done.
Look, we've got a whole 100 and 200 furnaces built. Done in a week.
Yeah, we're good.
I was just going to say that going on that principle that it's like William Joseph Paxton has been attributed to building here, there, and everywhere, but there's also another architect who was worldwide, and he's been attributed to building all these buildings all at the same time, all over the world. And I don't know, but he must have been working at warp speed, I think.
Yeah.
He must have had a magic wand. Tring, tring. Is it done?
I know there was one architect they looked up from the buildings and stuff all around the world, and he'll be like 30 projects, and there'll be these huge castles and stuff. I'm like, how in the hell do you have time to do that? There's no possible way you can build all these things and make these buildings.
This is what I'm saying. How can it be in Australia at the same time as he's in America and Britain, building all these similar projects, and they all very much look alike? And you think, well, was he in all places at once? It just does not compute.
Yeah, and supposedly back then it's hard to get around. So
by coach, and boat.
Boat and coach, yeah, right.
It can take you like 6 months to get over the Atlantic sort of thing.
Right.
None of it makes any sense.
They were very sloppy with their narratives. If you really pay attention like we do, you just read one after another and you're just like, oh man, this is so stupid.
Well, this is why some of us do what we do, because we know unless there was high tech involved and they had apparatuses or vehicles that can transport them at the touch, finger touch, it does not make any sense whatsoever. It's like you said about the cowboys and Indians. Well, there's places in the desert where they've left the props. Even in the turn of the century, they were making the megalithic films about the megalithic period, and all the props are being left there. And it's like Karen says that we live in a place that's just abandoned. And what did these people do? They just abandon stuff.
Yeah. It's just left over. You said that, I was just reading the other day, hadn't researched it, but the Ten Commandments movie that was, I guess, it wasn't, there's no sound. It was like 90 years ago. And so they said they filmed part of it in some desert in America somewhere, out west. And now they're having, geologists or whatever, unearth this stuff. All these statues and whatever, and they're blaming it on the movie set, and them just leaving it there. I'm like, what? You would never just do that. You would never just leave a whole movie set, and these are huge columns and buildings and stuff.
Yes, exactly.
And they're all underground. So wind just mysteriously, in 90 years covered it all up, and now they're having to dig it out. It's just rubbish.
Bizarre.
And also some of the brickwork is amazing that they did. Cool.
Yeah, oh man, that's just so amazing. They could do anything with brick. Oh, so perfect.
Yeah, don't forget they built the dome on the cathedral in Florence. There's someone's trying to rebuild it, and they spent 20 years. They can't do it.
Right.
And the man who did it isn't even an architect. And would you believe there's no plans for it? But it's still amazing that they built this dome. It's got no supports and it supports itself. It's the biggest dome in the world.
Yeah.
I've been up that, and I've actually crawled up the dome to the top.
Oh, wow.
In Florence.
How was that experience?
I quite enjoyed it. I must admit, when you go towards the top of the dome, the staircase gets very narrow, but then you're suddenly there and you're looking out the top and you can see all of Florence. It's amazing.
Oh, yeah. I know which one you're talking about. Yeah, that huge one.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
But that's still there, but all this stuff's been destroyed. We're going to be coming to the end of this video in a minute. I wonder whether we should just... we've got 2 more minutes.
I just want to say about what Mark was saying about the buildings. I mean, I watched a video of a demolition job, and it took them all the dynamite that they had in the town or the city they're working in. They sent away for more because they were trying to destroy 16-foot-inch walls, 16 feet thick walls.
Yeah.
Who builds 16 feet walls?
Yeah, there's no purpose in that. I mean, as far as we know, there's no reason to build with brick. I mean, there's no reason for that, and that would just take forever in our time, and it would be too much money because everything's priced out now, and even brick home, you do it with one brick, layer of brick, and it was partly because we don't know anything else, and then it's too expensive. I mean, nobody would do a 5 layer brick wall. I'm sure the insulation would be good, but
the demob lads that were trying to demolish it, they said it's taken them such a substantial time and explosives that they actually ended up giving up trying to destroy this building and just built over the top of it. That's saying something, isn't it?
Oh, yeah. And these buildings were built to last forever. And that's why, who knows how old some of these buildings are. They got melted or whatever, and they were built to last. I mean, that's why they're still here, even damaged. Nothing takes them down.
That's why we've got the evidence of them still being around, and that's why the brick is still showing through in certain areas. Because, like you said, they were made to last the test of time. So I begin to wonder, are some of these ancient buildings older than the pyramids, and the pyramids came afterwards? Because when you look at the damage, it's the old theory, innit, about order out of chaos, and whoever's in charge, that is their motto, even today. We'll destroy the past to control the future. And we've got the evidence, and I like your emphasis on that, because it's one of my favourite cliches that...
Well, one second, Christian. Christian, what's a nice picture of you, Mark?
All right.
So, Christian, what were you saying? Sorry.
Yeah, I was just going along with the emphasis of what Mark was saying about evidence. And it's one of my favourite cliches because I tell you to stay grounded. And the one thing that keeps me grounded is always look back to evidence, because my popular phrase is that evidence needs no defense. It is here, and that's why I resonate with what Mark's saying about the evidence. It's the one thing that you cannot deny in our material world. If it's here, it existed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But we're still not quite sure what it all means, whether it means what they say it means. They could have been making all the red bricks. I mean, I want to know where the places are for how they built all the infrastructure like they did. Some of these buildings were 9 acres big.
Yeah, and continue down in most cases. Like I'm saying, when they, like in Turkey or whatever, and then they're like, oh yeah, they chiseled all this city underneath the buildings, and like, oh no, they didn't chisel anything. That's left over from the same building.
Petra itself. It's an amazing place, but that looks melted in so many areas. You can actually look with your own eyes and see it's melted, but they say that 85% of it is underground. 85%.
Yeah, and you see what's above ground, which is enormous. and then you just continue to go down, and it's just like, wow, it just can't wrap your head around it almost. And I would love to know where the original ground level was, personally, but, who knows? A lot of it's flooded, and, a lot of the vegetation and the water hides and camouflages most of it. We probably only see maybe even 10% of what's really around us or under us. And, if all that was gone, and just for a week, man, you'd have some people rubbernecking everywhere like, what the hell is this?
There's a guy that I followed, and Karen has in the past, but I've followed people like Michael Tellinger, and it's like I said earlier, 15 years ago, I came across my first town that looked like red brick and had all been melted, but I wasn't into it at the time and didn't recognize it for what it was, and I don't think even Michael did. But there's been other people along the way, Flat Earth Nation, that point all these things out, that it's like this world goes through resets, not the resets they're doing. I think that this actual world does go through resets where certain events do happen and it's out of their control. Either that, it's in their control, or out of their control. But either way, all these areas, they don't all look the same. They haven't been melted in the same fashion. They're of different ages. And when you establish that, you just have to think that is it just natural events that happen? Or is it because of what this place is and we live in? It begs belief to know that everything that I've researched over the last 20 years, and you begin to think, well, what did I learn at school? The geology thing is just a phony baloney show. When you establish that everything is about growth.
Yeah. And that's what it tricks your mind too, as far as going back to, trying to thinking about school. And that's why a lot of people are like, call us, stupid or whatever. But, I don't know, and as far as the resets, over and over again, I don't see it as far as what I'm looking at, with the destruction, but who knows? There could have been something, before, I just don't think they built, even however long ago, built on top of stuff. Like, once this place was damaged, it's damaged. You can't just they've taken control of it now with the wires and everything everywhere, and, for the electricity and dams. But, they're doing that for probably two reasons. It's to control and everything and drain your money and time. But it's not what this realm isn't what it used to be. And once something's damaged, you can't repair it. Yeah, you can't really, like a motherboard, just say, for instance, you could pull all the pieces off and try to put it back together, but it's not going to work the same.
I just want to emphasize on what you're saying about the buildings. My concept of what the buildings were, it's like the outside brickwork or the actual construction is the flesh, and the iron or copper, whatever else they've put inside, is like the working structure of it. It's almost like a radio, if you like, or a television, or it's the wiring inside the building. And when you see some of these burnt out buildings, the only thing that remains is the iron or iron copper content that was built within its structure. Yeah, and it's like the rest has been burnt away, and all you're left with. But if it becomes detached, it becomes dysfunctional, doesn't it?
Yeah, I agree with you there as far as the wiring, like the iron you're seeing and stuff throughout the buildings, and copper and hell, mercury and whatever they had back then, and it was all a component for these buildings. And it's like today we have these little wires and all that. It's the same concept to me. It's just energy. Running through the buildings and harnessing it, and the deception towards what I think before it happened. They could have been charged. They could have created money and coins, and then you had to pay for this and that, and then it was just a downfall from there, and it's continued.
Degradation.
Yeah, and then nothing's built to last anymore either. So everything's you have to pay so much money for something that's halfway good that'll last, and then if you find something cheap, it's just throw away. So They didn't build
So
it like
just to
that
say
back
that
then.
the pictures showing right now with these bricks are showing all the different layers on the building. Like, there's quite a lot of layers in this building.
Yeah, that's the one that's got just layer after layer after layer of brick, and there's so many. And then it's got a gate in front of it now, or a fence. I've seen an older picture of that place, and the brick just continues behind it, on and on and on, and some of it it goes into the ground. It's just covered. It's all brick. That's all that's there. It's amazing to look at too. There, and you're just like, why in the world would you just have all these layers of bricks? And where did you get them? And how did you build it? And it just doesn't make sense.
Why, when, and how? I want to know how long ago.
Yeah. Well, they'll tell you average, 1855, and then they'll tell you another 1855. So those coke ovens, that you showed of mine, a month ago, whatever. That's only about 30 minutes from this place, that you're watching now.
I think the great puzzle is that with a lot of the research that I've done over the last 8 years, that everything seems to be attributed to the 1800s. Everything was built in the 1800s. Whatever you look at, one of the earliest ones that I came across was in Louisiana. It's a Romano-Greco temple, and they reckon that was only built in the 1700s. So, it's beggars belief.
Yeah, you're right. Everything is basically 1800s. Everything.
You know why that is, don't you? That's the one thing, like, for as long as I can remember, the stories is, the Americans are always jealous because they never had a monarchy. Well, you can have our monarchy if you want, but it's not real anyway. But you have the history. You have it all, and they've just lied to you. You've got castles, you've got all-star forts, you've got pyramids, you've got our history.
Yeah, we've got everything here, and then that's even the more amazing thing about the narratives. It's the same architecture, same everything is all around this realm, and then they just say, people from Europe came over, and the architects, and then they helped out with the construction, when nobody was supposed to be here but the Indians, in 1500 or whatever.
Well, they had to destroy it or try and destroy it, didn't they? Because they've got to pretend you weren't here till the 1700s. You've got to pretend that, or end of the 1600s, that's when it started, America, but they're lying, and I ain't buying.
No. Yeah, I just walk around and I'm thinking, okay, so there was nothing here, and then all of a sudden, it's like the Capitol buildings and everything that are everywhere around the world. And, they built this in just a couple hundred years, and no, I'm sorry, that's BS. So,
yeah, you don't know what you're looking at. Like, in a sense, they're sort of just about making them sort of antique-like. But you don't know if it's 400 or 500 years old. But it just annoys me. It really annoys me. I'm sure it annoys Christian. We spent hours talking about this. We can never get to the end because there is no end.
Yeah, there's not. There's no actual, proof of any of it. There's just dates. They just throw out dates in a book, and that's it. And it's like if you ask a historian or something, they're just going by, they're just regurgitating what they're taught.
But they've got to get rid of this sort of history for you, because if suddenly someone said they were building in the 1600s, but again, they don't show it properly because it looks like Spain and Mexico were running America for quite a long time. In fact, they had more of America than England ever had, so I don't understand what the independence from us was about.
Yeah.
It's all crazy.
It is.
Ruling classes.
Don't forget, Mad King George came over. He was the King of England, Mad King George here, and then he became George Washington and made a corporation and then took it back to England. So it's all bizarre, really.
Yeah. Who are George Washington and all? Who are those people really? I think those people were from the old world, and it was like the statues and stuff, or the Mount where they have all the presidents here. I can't think of the name.
I'm so glad we won't get one of Trump and Biden then.
Oh my God.
Oh, can you imagine that? Like, say you live near them, I can't get away from them.
Oh, that'd be terrible.
Oh. Oh, dearie me. Yeah, because I just don't want that.
I think if they made a statue of Biden, it'd have to be a donut, wouldn't it?
Sniffing some girl's hair.
Oh no! This place is quite amazing, isn't it? Because you're saying this was another place where it was mine. I mean, they were ovens. Those chimneys look. I don't know. It's a chimney going up in the middle of that one, isn't it? Just the top.
Right. It's circular and it goes up. Okay. The last one, Janie's furnace. I took some video on the inside. It's gated up, but anyway, it's the same thing. It's circular in the inside. It looks like kind of pyramidish on the outside. The inside is circular. And there's another furnace, too, that it's all block. And I looked, and it looks like a pyramidish. And you look on the inside, and it's circular. They're all the same as far as that in the middle, the circular thing. So...
Yeah, well, we've been going for an hour and a half. Do you think that's enough for today?
Yeah, that's fine.
I just want to emphasise the fact that I worked in the steel industry and the foundry industry, and everything that I've discovered since makes me sort of like realise, what was I building? You know, was I building what I was told I was building? You know, it makes me question that itself.
Yeah, you're exactly right.
And when you discover all these little furnaces out in the middle of nowhere, my way of thinking is they were used for metallurgy, you know, because we use coke and coal in the brickwork furnaces where I worked, because it was an old foundry. You know, it was more than 300 years old, and it's probably the oldest place I've ever worked anywhere. We were told that this industry didn't sort of like establish until the 1800s, but this place was built in the 1700s. So, you know, it's like the divine source is telling me to reiterate on this, thinking, well, it's a lie, you know. Maybe that foundry was even older than what we're made to believe, you know. And how long has this... I mean, when you go back to it, it involves alchemy, the mixing of metals, you know. And when you establish that, you think, well, are these volcanoes being erupted deliberately? If they are volcanoes and not just slag heaps from the old times, because a lot of them are absolutely identical, you know. And nature doesn't do identical. Nature doesn't do straight lines.
No, they don't.
You know.
I don't think anything hardly we see is natural. What we're walking on, and the volcanoes, and I think they're just buildings still hot from the event. And there was actually one, real quick, there was one volcano that's not been active supposedly in whatever thousands of years. So when these guys go down to the bottom, you know, and they got a camera, and then but right behind them is brick. Like, it's really, there's some brick right in the wall.
And that shocked me. That shocked me.
Yeah, I was just like, turn around. And so, you know, you see that, and especially, it's just like, that was a building. You know, they say it was a volcano. You know, anything that looks sort of like a
volcano. And also, when they're building these brick buildings, it's not like they slap the mortar in there. Everything's done really nicely, isn't it?
Yeah. Very, very pristine, nice, yeah.
It's all neat.
Yeah.
I mean, there was one picture just recently I shared with Karen. There was a house, and it was up in the air, but it was inside a rock face, and it was a perfect house. And you have to figure, how did that house get up there with no path or direction to it? There's no rope ladders. There's no sign of anything else but the house inside this wall. And the only way you can figure out that it got there, there had to be other parts to this. You know, it just doesn't get there by magic, does it?
Right. No. I mean, just like you're saying, there's towers, castles, whatever, way high or just out in the middle of nowhere. Like, why in the world would you especially go build on a mountainside or whatever? You know how hard and difficult that would be anyway. And then you're building brick with it, and then they're in the middle of nowhere, like or in the middle of the water. You know, they call it a lighthouse or something, It's just left over to me. But you would never do that. I mean, and then the means, that narrative too back then. I mean, it's just totally ridiculous.
When Karen did the thing about castles, I went on a rampage looking at castles, and some of these castles, I've got no way to get to them, and they are like huge structures, and they're immense buildings, and you think, well, how did they get the materials to the top of a pinnacle, you know, that has got no road to it? How did they get the materials there?
According to them, it's donkeys and chisels. Maybe some horses.
Yeah, we're left with so many questions and no answers. This is what I'm saying.
And the carts would have had, you know, the cart wheels would have been wooden.
Yeah. Yeah, I think
it is laughable, isn't it?
It is. They just shove it in your face too. I think they just sit back to whoever they is and just laugh. It's just totally ridiculous as far as the narrative.
They just want you watching the television.
Yep. That's all they want you to do.
With more lies on it.
Yep. Keep you in
Mark,
trance.
I've really enjoyed today. Thank you so much for coming on this hangout. We're going to say goodbye on the hangout, but don't go because we'll say goodbye privately. But do you want a last couple of words as we're finishing?
Yeah, I just want to thank you very much, Karen, for mirroring my stuff, having me on. It's great to meet you, Christian. Thanks for hanging out with me. And just want to say, Spartan Red has a chill out zone. He goes on just about every night, shows tons of evidence from different people. I get on there a lot. Showing melted evidence of all what I'm talking about, what we're talking about. Just a shout out to Jen and her channel, the Truth Seeker 69. That's hard for me to say. And Joachim's channel, the Tartarian Meltdown. Great people, and they present a lot of evidence and different views too. So thank you again for having me.
It is an absolute pleasure. Thank you very much for letting us mirror your videos. And I really hope, you know, in a few weeks' time or something, we can do another one because I find this all fascinating. And we've met each other now and we've done a hangout. So the next one will be even better.
Yeah, right on. Sounds good.
Cool. Christian, do you want to say anything?
Yeah, I just want to say thanks to Mark. I appreciate your knowledge and your insights. And I want to say thank you to you as well, Karen, because you've woken me up to various factors that I never contemplated before. That's why I call you Mrs. Sherlock Holmes. But yeah, any listeners out there or viewers, whatever, I just want to say, always ask questions because we're finding out the truth, but we're finding more questions as we're finding out the truth. But always ask questions. Thanks all.
Oh, thank you though, Christian, and thank you so much, Mark. It's been amazing, and we will come back and do another one. We're just finishing with you looking at this other, what do you call it, when they had the furnaces, yeah. It is a very weird looking, oh, you're talking now, so we must be coming to an end. But it's a very weird looking building, that, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It's one of the weirder ones I've been to.
and that's, you couldn't just slap that up. They must have known what they were doing to build that.
Oh, yeah. Definitely, at whatever time period that was.
Yeah. Anyway, we're coming to the end because I say you're talking at the end of the video. There is Mark. You can see him yourself. Thank you very much. Mwah, Mark, mwah, Christian, and mwah, chat room.
Bye, everyone.
Great to be here. Thank you.